Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. When you're vacationing at Walt Disney World, you don't have to stay in the same accommodation for your entire trip. If you decide to move hotels at any point, this is often referred to as a split stay. In today's video, we'll go over all of your need-to-know information about the logistics of split stays. Staying on property at Walt Disney World can of course be incredibly expensive. A neat way to try to get the best of both worlds, that is your perks from staying on Walt Disney World property, but also save some money, is to do a split stay. In general, any combination of changing hotels during your vacation can be considered a split stay. This can be a combination of off-property hotels and on-property hotels, or this can just be a combination of moving around the various hotels in the Walt Disney World Resort area. Split stays can also consist of as many different hotels as you'd like. A very common type of split stay will be between two on-property Walt Disney World Resort hotels. However, if you have a 7-night trip, in theory, you could stay at 7 different hotels and that would still be considered a split stay. Other than saving money, there are several reasons to consider doing a split stay. For example, if you and your party can't decide on which resort you want to stay at, doing a split stay will allow you to stay at multiple. Also, sometimes the resort that you want to stay at may not have availability for the entire length of your trip. By doing a split stay, you'll still get to experience that resort while maintaining the length of your trip. And I'll touch on this a little bit later in the video, but doing a split stay and coordinating your hotels with the theme parks you'll be attending on that day can be a great way to save on commute time between the parks and your resort. A split stay can also be a great opportunity to incorporate the Disney dining plan for only part of your trip. I recently did an entire video covering the Disney dining plan, so check that out in the card in the upper right hand corner here and let me know if you have any questions. So all in all, split stays sound pretty great, but of course there are some downsides. In my opinion, one of the biggest downsides is the roomlessness you experience on the day you check out of one hotel and check into another hotel. Your room is not guaranteed to be ready, typically until the afternoon. If you're staying off property, of course, this is going to vary, but generally speaking, most hotels don't guarantee your room to be ready until 3 or 4 p.m. So if you enjoy taking a midday break back at your room, this day when you're changing rooms may make that more difficult or not feasible at all. If you take your midday break sometime around lunch, there's a very good chance that your new room simply won't be ready. Moving luggage between hotels can also be a hassle. If you're moving within Walt Disney World property, meaning you're moving from one Walt Disney owned and operated resort to another Walt Disney owned and operated resort, well, they do make this a little bit easier for you. Take your luggage down to Bell Services and speak with the cast member. Bell Services will coordinate moving your luggage from your current hotel that you're checking out of to your new hotel. However, do note that the process of moving your luggage can and will take several hours. If there's anything you'll need throughout the day, be sure to keep that on your person and don't give it to Bell Services, assuming you'll be able to get it at your new hotel ASAP. And note, while luggage transfer is technically a free service, be sure to tip the Bell Services cast members at both hotels. People have pretty variable opinions about what is an appropriate amount to tip. Personally, I do about $2 to $3 per bag, so if they were moving 3 bags for me, honestly, I would just round up and give them a 10. If you're moving between on-property hotels and off-property hotels, Bell Services is not going to move your luggage for you. In this case, if you have a rental car, you can move them yourself, or you can order a ride share like an Uber or Lyft and move them yourself. If you're doing this in the morning, it's highly likely that your new room won't be ready, so you can simply store your luggage with Bell Services at your new hotel. Or if you don't want to deal with this in the morning, simply store your luggage at Bell Services at the hotel you're checking out from, and then go enjoy your whole day. Do the parks, do everything you had planned. Come back at the end of your day to pick up your luggage and then move it to your new hotel. By this time in the evening or at night, it's highly likely that your new room will be ready. So gather your luggage from the hotel you checked out of and make your way to your new hotel, where you'll immediately be able to check in and hopefully settle into your room. And note, even if you are moving between 2 on-property hotels, you can of course do either of these options as well. Moving your own luggage, either with a rental car or through a rideshare, is the only way to guarantee that your luggage will stay in your possession the entire time. And note, even for between on-property hotels, I'm suggesting rideshares here and not the free Walt Disney World transportation. Although there is free transportation, for the most part, these go between resorts and parks. So if you are moving from All-Star Sports over to the Grand Floridian, there isn't going to be a bus that connects those two directly. Rather, you would have to take a bus from All-Star Sports to a theme park or Disney Springs and then wait there for a bus to Grand Floridian. While this is totally feasible and you can do it, it is going to take quite a lot of time and I wouldn't personally recommend it. Another downside to note is that multiple reservations for Walt Disney World resorts will incur multiple deposits. And while off-site properties all have their own rules, it's highly likely those will incur a deposit as well. There is simply no getting around having multiple deposits if you're booking a split stay. Whether you're booking vacation packages or room-only reservations, you will incur a deposit for each segment of your split stay. And last, split stays really do take an additional amount of planning. A split stay with 2 hotels is really 100% doable, and if that's something you want to do, you absolutely can, and it's really not that difficult to manage. A split stay with more than 2 resorts gets a little bit more complicated every time you add another reservation. Each reservation is a little bit more information to keep track of, both when you're planning and making those reservations, as well as when you're on property during your vacation. If you're not a big planner and keeping track of those details doesn't sound feasible for you, then a split stay may not make much sense for your travel party. A big reason folks stay at Walt Disney World owned and operated resorts is all of those perks, including that extended FastPass Plus booking window. Let's do a quick rundown of how those perks will look when you're doing a split stay. For ease of examples, I'll be talking about a split stay between 2 resorts only. If your split stay is between 2 Walt Disney World owned and operated hotels, then your FastPass booking window in theory should begin 60 days prior to your arrival from that first hotel check-in date. And from there, you should be able to book FastPasses for the length of your trip. Please note, though, that this is how it's supposed to work in theory, and as recently even as April of 2020, there have been instances reported of glitches for certain guests. In this specific case, a split stay between 2 Walt Disney World hotels, folks have noted as recently as April that their FastPass booking window opens 60 days in advance of check-in for reservation number 1 and only allows them to book out FastPasses for the length of that reservation. And then they have a second booking day 60 days in advance of their check-in day for resort number 2, which is also your checkout day for the first resort. Since Walt Disney World switched to a date-based ticket system, it seems that there have been some glitches reported in FastPass booking windows. Originally, the system didn't appear to recognize split stays between only Walt Disney World owned and operated resorts at all, and that FastPass booking window was not extended to begin with. However, that glitch was addressed, and for the most part, folks have had pretty decent success rates in being able to book their entire FastPasses starting 60 days before their first check-in day. But it does still seem like there are occasional glitches for people. Having to deal with that uncertainty can certainly be a downside of split stays. Similarly, there are conflicting reports about booking FastPasses if you start on-site and then move to an off-site hotel. Generally, 60 days in advance of your check-in for your on-site portion, you'll be able to book FastPasses for the entire length of your on-site stay. And then you're able to make additional selections when you reach 60 days in advance of your off-site stay, 1 day at a time. However, again, there have been individual guests reporting that this isn't working this way for them, and they actually have to wait until 30 days in advance for their off-site portion of the stay. And last, if you start off-site and then move to on-site, the FastPass booking window for the off-site portion of your stay will be 30 days in advance, 1 day at a time, and the FastPass booking window for the on-site portion of your stay will be 60 days in advance of your check-in, and then you can book your FastPasses for the remainder of your trip. That's the details for FastPass booking windows when doing a split stay between 2 resorts. The same logic applied to FastPasses actually does not apply to advanced dining reservations. If your split stay is between on-property resorts, unlike with FastPasses, for ADRs, you actually won't just have the one booking day. You will be able to book 180 days in advance of your check-in day for each reservation. Meaning, 180 days in advance of your first check-in day, you can go ahead and book ADRs for the length of that reservation only, and then you'll have to start over again for your second check-in day. In this way, advanced dining reservations essentially function as normal. If you're staying off-property, you can book 180 days in advance, but only 1 day at a time. And if you're staying on property, you can book 180 days in advance of your check-in date for the length of that reservation. So even if your split stays are contiguous, meaning you check out from Hotel 1 on 1 day and you check into Hotel 2 on the same day, they are still separate reservations. And so you'll have separate advanced dining reservation booking windows. For Magical Express, if you're staying on property during your whole split stay, you can use the Magical Express bus as normal. The only difference will be that you will just have different reservation numbers. If you are starting or ending your vacation off-site, however, you'll only be able to use the Magical Express bus for the one leg of your trip where you're on-site. For split stays that are completely on Walt Disney World property, note that there are a number of ways you can combine room-only reservations and vacation package stays. Rather than go over all of those possibilities, I'll simply say this. I personally would recommend that you book the vacation package portion for the first leg of your trip. And when doing so, buy a ticket that is long enough to cover the length of your trip. Ticket cost per day decreases greatly when you continue to add more and more days. So to take advantage of the greatest ticket savings possible, you'll want to have the longest possible ticket, meaning you need to start using it day 1 of your trip. So excluding any package deals with certain restrictions to work around, generally speaking, the least hassle and the greatest amount of savings is going to be to book your vacation package first, followed by room-only reservations. Alternatively, the most savings is often going to be simply doing room-only reservations for the entire length of your trip and then buying your tickets separately. Be sure to scrutinize the specials page for Walt Disney World to see what makes the most sense for you. If you want more information about all of the options for combining vacation package days and room-only reservations for a split stay, I'm going to leave a link in the description below to WDW Prep School's article about this. It's a really great resource and I highly recommend you read it if you want to get into the weeds. That covers the basic logistics of split stays at Walt Disney World. Now let's move on to some practical tips that are highly opinion-based. First, I personally wouldn't recommend staying only one night in a hotel. The exception to this is for your arrival or departure day. Perhaps you want to stay at a hotel closer to the airport. This can save you money, and depending on the time that you're arriving or leaving Orlando, it can be a real lifesaver to just be able to crash at a hotel close by. But in my opinion, staying one night at a resort during your trip, say somewhere in the middle and not bookended at departure or arrival, really doesn't make that much sense. You won't have time to explore the resort and get to know it, and you'll hardly have any time to enjoy the amenities. I also personally find it annoying to deal with the packing, the unpacking, and the getting settled in, not to mention the logistics of finding my room, remembering how to find my room, and changing that over day after day for one night stay is just not my idea of a good time. Second, for a split stay, I would highly recommend that you start at the least desirable hotel and you move to your most desirable hotel. If you start at the Polynesian, then move to Pop Century, and then move to an off-site hotel, you may find yourself being a little bit disappointed with every move. But if you had instead flipped that order and started off-property and then moved to a value on-property resort and then a moderate or deluxe on-property resort, you will probably get more and more joy with each move. Now, all of the hotels on Walt Disney World property are excellent and they are themed and you'll have a good time. But certainly that luxe feeling and the level of lusciousness, especially with the amenities, increases as you increase in category. So don't set yourself up for disappointment and instead end on the highest category. And the last tip is, if it's at all possible, try to coordinate which hotel you'll be staying at with which park you'll be attending. If you're going to splurge to stay at the Contemporary, for example, it makes the most sense to line those stays up with the days you'll be attending the Magic Kingdom the most. Part of the reason the deluxe resorts are so expensive is their proximity to the parks. From the Contemporary, it's literally about a 10-minute walk to the Magic Kingdom. No other hotel has that kind of access to that park. If you're going to pay for a deluxe resort, make sure that you're taking advantage of that proximity to whatever park is closest as much as you possibly can. This is especially useful for those of you who are big rope droppers. Having a quick stroll over to a theme park for rope drop is so much simpler than dealing with the Walt Disney World transit in the morning. If you found this information helpful, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Ring the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. And if you want to interact with me on other platforms, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PixieDustPhD. Have you ever done a split stay? And if yes, would you do it again? What did you like and what did you not enjoy about your split stay? And if you haven't done a split stay yet, is that something that you'd consider in the future? Or do split stays simply seem like too much of a logistical hassle for you? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you're having a magical day, and we'll see you real soon at PixieDustPhD.